Joining us tonight is Honorable Karim Masaba, Member of Parliament, Industrial Division, Mbale City, to throw some perspective. Honorable, many thanks for joining us tonight. Let's get into it. Despite what is going to be said tomorrow and what has been said before, what is the actual state of Uganda's economy?
Thank you very much, Canary, and good evening to all the viewers out there. When you look at the Ugandan economy at the moment, and when you look at the budget, how the economy is faring, I believe it's quite doing bad. And in the few years I've studied the economy of the country, I think it's at its worst. Because, for example, when you look at the budget that we do expect to execute in the next financial year of about 72 trillion shillings, we are going to be borrowing about 31 trillion shillings. We expect to collect about 40 trillion shillings through the tax and non-tax and then the grants that we'll be getting. But again, out of all this, URA has a target of about 34 trillion shillings, which target I'm certain will not be meeting. So probably URA, at most, if it does collect a lot, it might collect about 30 trillion shillings. But again, we are borrowing about 32 trillion shillings. So the picture here is that we are actually borrowing in a financial year, we are borrowing much more money than we can collect, meaning we cannot sustain the government, we cannot sustain our economy as a country without borrowing. And the debt burden has been quite increasing. The stock is quite huge when you look at it at the moment. I think it's clocking 107 trillion shillings, which is quite alarming without a proper debt repayment or management strategy, as the Ministry of Finance has always come out explaining that the demand and the expectations from the public are quite high. But again, I don't believe that should be right for us to keep borrowing as a country, because each and every year we are borrowing, and as I speak now, I think every Ugandan is being demanded about 2.3 million shillings, which is quite huge. And the worst part is we are borrowing internally as a country. What this means is Uganda actually cannot get monies. It cannot get a lot of money from out anymore, because when you look at our budget, only about 9% of the money we are going to borrow is coming from the concessional loans. Meaning government now is going out to the money lenders, will be going out to banks, Stanbic and all the other banks to try and solicit money to finance the economy, which is dangerous. Because
Honorable, the public expect the president to talk about the actual state of the nation, like you are addressing some of those matters, and also provide solutions on the persistent corruption, debt burden, unemployment, and low cost of living. Instead of providing those solutions, many economists say that the president does go back to 1986 on when they went to the bush and what the economy looked like, and that is in the past. Do you think that there's hope tomorrow that your expectations will be met?
When you look at the 4 years I've been in Parliament and the State of the Nation addresses the President has always given, actually they are quite the same. They are always similar. He's always talking about the same thing. So it's quite easy for someone out there to predict what the President will be talking about, because I'm certain he'll be talking about the usual things: agro-industrialization, tourism, science, technology, which again he does not finance, which is very bad for us as an economy, because he always talks about the ATMs. When you look at, for example, agriculture, you're looking at about 1 trillion shillings from the PDM going into agriculture, which you expect to put people or Ugandans out there out of poverty. This is only 1 trillion out of the 72 trillion shillings. So how realistic is this? When you look at tourism, you're looking at about maybe 200 and something billion shillings that is being allocated to that sector. So how do you expect the tourism to grow into the country? So I believe whoever does advise the president, probably they do not give him the proper information, or they misguide him, because year in, year out, you're coming, stating the same things, but again, you're not financing the key sectors that you believe will boost this economy for it to have the tenfold growth as you expect.
Honorable, briefly, in just 30 seconds. So then what can be done? What should the president prioritize in the speech tomorrow, especially on stabilizing the economy? When I asked you, you said the economy is at its worst. It's struggling. So what should the president prioritize in his speech tomorrow in stabilizing the economy?
Yes, I think as an economist, I do believe that the president would be looking at more of how to reduce the dependence on our budget, how to cut the expenditure in our budgets year in, year out. Because when you look about 2 financial years, we're at about 52, 54 trillion shillings. Right now we've jumped, we are in the 70s within 2 financial years, which is quite alarming. When you look at fiscal policies and how to manage, when you do not have enough money, when you're not able to raise enough resources to run government, then you downsize, you cut government. We've seen them come out and talk about rationalization, but even with the rationalization, we are still having a growth in budgets, which does not make sense. We expect that as Parliament, after passing the rationalization bills, we would expect that we would save a lot, there would be a lot of money that would be reduced from the budget instead of it increasing. Yeah. And I think the president should come out and teach us and tell Ugandans and his government, this government, our government, on how to live within our means. If you're a father in a home, you're earning 1 million shillings. Because when you look at, for example, our debt to GDP currently, it's about 53%. So that means that every 10,000 shillings in the economy, every maybe 10,000 shillings, we have about 5,300, which is a debt. So if you're a father in a home, you need to learn how to live within your means. If you're earning 1 million shillings, then you need to plan based on how you can survive, how you can cut your expenditure and pay your bills within that. But when you look at borrowing from neighbors, borrowing from the shops around, borrowing from friends, I think that is quite bad and you'll end up living in poverty.